Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the second of our series of webinars this week. So getting ready for restart. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining those of you who are joining us live today. So welcome along again. And also thanks to those of you if you are watching this afterwards online and checking out our webinars. We appreciate you you joining and the feedback that you've been giving us. So in terms of what we've got for you this afternoon, let me just take you through what we're planning to do and share for you a few new things we've got as well. We tried a few of them yesterday, and we may try a few more of them today again to try and make it a little bit more interactive. So in terms of what we've got for you today, let's just click through this and talk you through what we've got in terms of interaction. We are trying to be a little bit more interactive today. We had a little go at this yesterday, so thanks to those of you who joined us yesterday. You can chat, so the chat facility is enabled, and you're more than welcome to get chatting as we go through the webinar. You can ask a question via the Q&A button, that's absolutely fine. But also, if you want to and you're brave enough and you want to ask a question live, then put your hand up and we'll invite you into the video conference at the end of it, and you can ask some questions of us live. That's absolutely fine. Just where are we? For those of you who didn't join yesterday, we did have the Design Trends webinar on yesterday from Alice Bryan, so a big thank you to Alice for that one. We will be putting those up on the website, so you will be able to see them. You will be able to see the presentation slides that were attached to that as well, so that you can refer back to them afterwards. I'm pleased to say that I've got Joe, who I'll be handing over to shortly, who's going to take you through a little bit about reopening your framing business. These are certainly unusual times for all of us, and we want to build a little bit on some of the messages from the last series of webinars that we did. So Joe's going to share a few more sort of practical ideas and advice to help you thinking about reopening, whether that's sooner than the 15th of June or whether that is on the 15th of June. We've got some advice and support around that today. And then I'm pleased to say that as of tomorrow, then John Price will be joining us again to do another framing masterclass. So John will give us some technical skills tomorrow and do another masterclass session, all of them running from 3 till 4 p.m. and all of them will be on the website. Just a reminder again for those of you that are doing the Guild Certified Framers certificate, you will get a couple of CPD points for each of the webinars that you view. The questions will be asked of you afterwards, and then you can send your answers back to the email address on there, and then you will get the points converted into verified. So that's another good initiative, and thanks to the guys at the Fine Art Trade Guild for providing that for us. Okay, so just before I hand over to Joe, I'm just going to do another little poll. So I just want to ask a poll from you guys out there. Okay, so just thinking about ready for restart, if you could just let me know on this question that you'll see coming up on the screen. I'd be interested to hear your views before Joe talks to you about it. So it should be quite straightforward. Some of you, if you was on the webinar yesterday, just click the button in front of you and then you can provide your answer, and then we'll have a little review of it. Once you've got a few more of you, I'll give you a few more seconds for those of you who still need to vote. It should be fairly easy to do. Give it another few seconds for those who haven't voted yet. Okay, so we've got 50% of you who are saying you've made some adjustments to your workspace and feel fairly prepared for opening. And then we've got 44% of you who are saying that you feel very prepared and that you've been following the online advice and feel comfortable and safe. And there's only one who said not at all. So I think some interesting opinions there, I guess, from yourselves in terms of how you're feeling about reopening. It is going to be a nervy time for us. It's new times, and it's a new era that we're going into with the reopening. But it is interesting to get your opinions there. So thank you for that. I'm now going to ask Joe if you want to just come and join me live, and then we'll just say hello to Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hi. Hi.
So I think you're working in terms of sound-wise. I'll hand over to you, and then hand it over to you and see if you can get it up on your screen once you've done a little intro. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Right. Thanks very much, Matt. Okay. Just share my screen. Hopefully, you're now all seeing the right screen. So I'm just going to.
Yes, we can, Joe.
Stop my video. There we go. We're ready. Right. So for those of you who didn't see me on the Design Desk webinar, and that is available on the Larson-Juhl website, I'm based down in Dawlish in South Devon, where my husband Alec and I have owned and run our bespoke framing business, the Framing Lots, for the past 14 years. We're based in an industrial unit, so we work away from the high street. We both hold our GCF qualifications and advanced qualifications from the Industries Trade Association, the Fine Art Trade Guild, and mine are in textiles and conservation framing. And since May 2019, I have been the chair and master of the Fine Art Trade Guild. So this is what we are going to be covering today. Health and safety for you and your customers, practical steps you can take, dealing with the new normal, looking to the future, and then a Q&A session at the end. There will be a lot of points that we're covering, a lot of things that you might want to refer back to, and there are some links that you'll be able to cut and paste from the slides when they're available on the Larson-Juhl website after this has gone out. Now, this pandemic has created some new laws, rules and regulations, and as employers or businesses that are open to the public, we have a legal requirement to ensure that our workspaces and customer accessed areas are safe. And there is now a wealth of information available. It's quite remarkable how much information they've got out there in such a short space of time. And it is important to make sure that you check regularly to keep up to date with the latest information. And each website handily clearly marks when updates have been made and details what they are. And so listed here for you are the government advice websites for England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and also Ireland, because I know we've got some people watching from there. And then on this link, there is the very specific information for shops and branches, which is going to affect the majority of us. And this is the information that's available on the gov.uk, sorry, cut my teeth in, gov.uk website. There's plenty of very clear advice available on this link, including more detailed information on the topics we're covering today. And they include things on there that might get overlooked, things like how we communicate with or provide access for those with disabilities once we start restricting access, or considering how we might undertake a task that we normally wouldn't think twice about, such as assisting customers with large framed items, offering to take it out to their car, perhaps. It provides information on the steps that will usually be needed to ensure your workplace is safe for you, your employees, and your customers. And you can use it effectively as a tick list to make sure that you've got everything covered. It is essential that anyone who visits or has to work in your premises feels safe, and that includes you, your staff, your customers, and any other visitors. And that really is the most important message that all governments are trying to get across to people. And it's not just about doing what you need to do. It's important that you're seen to be doing the right things as well. It's about that perception. How are your actions seen by your staff, your colleagues, and very importantly, your customers? Because everybody is relying on you to put those things in place, and you just have a brief window to get that message across well. The UK government has provided a 5-step plan to follow, and they then put a whole load more detail in on those. And they are risk assessment, hygiene practices, working from home, social distancing, and managing transmission risk. And we're going to go through each of the points. Now, reviewing these in turn when you do it for your own business means that you won't miss anything in your preparation, and it also means you'll be able to ensure you are complying with your legal obligations. So the first one is risk assessment, and this should be done before you reopen or restart work behind closed doors. The signs and barriers, like the one you can see on the screen, there are numerous safety companies and print companies that are producing these in various forms. Or of course, if you do your own printing, then you can create these yourself and even offer them for sale to other businesses. And there are a number of framers doing this already. Or you can just create your own spacings with hazard tape or similar on the floor. If you have staff, when you're doing your risk assessment, then you need to consult with them and share the results of the assessment. But if you have 5 or fewer employees, of course no employees at all, then you don't have to have a written risk assessment. The UK government have produced the poster that you see in the middle of your screen, which you can download from the government website as a PDF, and the link for that is at the bottom of your screen now. If you don't need to do a written risk assessment, and of course if you do, then this poster forms part of that and you would want to display it. But if you don't have to do that written one, then you can adapt or amend this particular poster to suit your needs. But having it on display may reassure your customers and other visitors of the steps that you've taken. But most importantly, when doing your risk assessment, keep it simple, keep it up to date, keep it relevant, and take practical steps. So the second step on the 5 steps is hygiene. And you will need to develop cleaning, hand washing, and hygiene procedures, which you should encourage all people on site to follow. You can provide hand sanitizers for staff and customer use, as well as soap or hand wash and hand drying at sinks and so on. Make sure you have these areas clearly marked for people to use, and it is a good idea to have separate ones for customers as well as the people working in the shop. Clean down your surfaces, especially frequently touched areas. Busy areas should have enhanced cleaning, and think particularly about pinch points where people can't avoid coming together in your workshop if you share your space with colleagues. And toilet facilities can't be ignored either. Think about the cleaning practices for those. Make sure you are providing adequate soap, hand wash, paper towels or hand dryers. Maybe have some extra paper towels with a handy bin so people can dispose of them safely. And so people can use those extra paper towels when they want to open doors or flush toilets. And make sure that those bins are emptied regularly of those used paper towels. If you usually allow customers to use your toilet facilities, then you may have to restrict that for a while. Gloves and masks, we see those everywhere at the moment. Decide if you want to insist that customers wear them. A lot of governments are advising them, but it's not a legal requirement in the UK at the moment. And if so, how would you enforce that? If you're okay with people not wearing them, it's worth saying so that the messaging is clear. Just make sure that whatever you're doing, you are complying with the law on this in your region. And you might want to wear gloves when handling customers' work at the design desk or when handing over completed work. This can give extra reassurance to you and them. But as you'll need to discard them afterwards, you might prefer to just increase your hand washing in most instances, as gloves remain in short supply at the moment. And Protective shields or screens around till areas or at the design desk are going to be part of shop design for a while to help with social distancing. And as framers, we can be quite creative on how we construct these. You might just want them at the till area if you can maintain a 2-metre social distancing space in other ways, or you may need them to divide your space at the design table. You can, of course, use acrylic or styrene, but as these are likely to be long-term, this pandemic is not going away anytime soon, you may prefer glass. And if you do, make sure to use toughened glass to comply with safety regulations. And the screens can be fixed in a frame, or if you're using a lighter weight material than glass, hanging from the ceiling, partial, full height, whatever suits. But do consider what glare or reflection there may be that might interfere with the design process, and adjust where you put it so that you can avoid this if possible. Just make sure that any screens you have are secure and safe. And then restricting access. And we've already seen the queues outside supermarkets and so on, where people are restricted in numbers on who can go in. But you might want to restrict access to cleaner areas or to maintain social distancing within your workshop or shop situation. If you have a larger retail space, you might need to arrange print browsers or shelving units to create some sort of flow around the space, or even a one-way system if your space allows. And if you have a design desk as part of a larger retail area, then you might need to barrier that off to prevent other customers coming too close to people, and then use screens to protect staff in that closer environment. And I thought you might like to see some of the changes we've made to our own area. What I haven't taken a picture of here is the doorbell that we've now got fitted, and we have a chain that goes across the doorway so that people cannot just walk in unannounced. The UK government has recommended that any business that can move to appointment systems does so, so we will be doing that from our reopening. And that allows us to naturally restrict the numbers inside the workshop, and the chain and doorbell and notices will make it clear that anyone else arriving has to wait until the person in front of them leaves before they can come in. We've also introduced the tensor barriers, the blue straps that you can see that go across, which retract, and that has helped us create this dedicated customer-only area and gives us a clear walkway from our workshop through to the far side of our design desk so that we can work there and be completely separate from our customer areas. That also has the advantage for us that it stops customers having access to the moulding and mountboard chevrons so that only we are touching those. And we've created the L-shaped screen barrier that you can see there with a gap at the base by the till area so that we can slide the card machine through to the customers for their use. And we've also introduced a system that any deliveries are now met at the door rather than being brought in, another use for the doorbell. But whatever you decide, keep your messaging clear, prominent and consistent, and we'll cover more of that later. The third part of the 5-step plan is working from home. And that's clearly not possible or practical for everyone, which is why a lot of us are already back in our workplaces, even though we're not open to the public. But there are some things that we can still do to reduce our social contact. If you have staff, can they stagger their shift patterns to cover busier times of day, or stagger their arrival or departure times to avoid those pinch points? You might even stagger your lunch times or encourage people to go outside for break. And this stops those common areas becoming so crowded. And we've seen this ourselves a lot around here on the business park where we're located, with staff from other units taking breaks in car park areas spaced around the area on chairs. You might also choose to limit the number of people in your shop by having some of the admin tasks that you would normally do at work done from home. That's another way that we can do that. And you might look to change your working and opening hours. It's quite a normal thing for people to be adjusting those at the moment. And although you might reduce them, you could also potentially extend them into evenings for appointments if it's easier to stagger hours that way. This is a real opportunity to trial new ideas to see what works. So with social distancing, reducing the number of people in your shop, having an appointment system for customers, clear signage on your door, clear messaging on your website and social media, markings and stickers on the floor, areas for staff separate from customers, and making use of shields and screens. And luckily, with the systems already in place in supermarkets and so on, people are getting very used to this new way of shopping. Decide how many people you can safely have in your shop while maintaining the 2-metre rule and how you can safely make this work. Be clear how many people can come in at the same time from the same household group, and you might want to ask people not to bring young children with them for a while. That's another recommendation from the government. If you look at your design desk and find ways to still have that design interaction while also staying safe, there are a variety of ways to do this, and screens or even face shields that your staff wear are becoming the new normal. Now, we're lucky because our design desk is exactly 2 meters wide, and you saw that in the previous photos. So instead of serving customers by standing next to them on either side of it, as we've always done, we're now going to position ourselves only on one side and have the customers on the other. But we still need a screen at our till area where that contact is closer, and each of us will adapt our own spaces to stay safe. If your premises are small with limited room to distance from customers, or your design desk is against a wall and you have to work side by side, then you are going to have to find more ingenious ways to manage. And one framer in the US came up with a fantastic idea. She'd put her design table next to a window. She does her design consultations through the glass while talking to her customer on their mobile phones, and that's been working well for her. You could do this using a doorway with a screen across to separate you, and many of our local independent food stores in town are using this exact method. Or you could work at your design desk while your customer is seated in an area slightly away from you in your shop. None of these are ideal situations and what we're used to, but we each have to find our own ways to adapt. And these will likely change as we get into the swing of working like this. And the 5th point is managing transmission risk. Because despite all our endeavours, all our careful planning and preparation, things will still happen that we can't control. The government rightly accepts that we aren't living in bubbles and that transmission can and will happen despite our best efforts. If members of your staff team have to work together, then you're encouraged to have fixed teams or partnering, keeping the same small groups together every day so that you're not mixing everyone up in the whole team. And this reduces transmission risk across the whole workforce. But we cannot always be 2 meters away from other people. We cannot 100% control potential contact with the virus. And we cannot know if people that we have met and interacted with are asymptomatic. There are always variables and unknowns. So all we can do is take practical steps to try to mitigate the risk. So let's look at the potential points of contact in our day. Handling artwork, customer collections, taking payments, and accepting deliveries. Those all involve those points of contact. And for each of them, it's important that we remember our hygiene rules, avoid touching our faces, the regular washing of hands between interactions and after each job, and the regular wiping of surfaces after customer visits or handling artwork. With payments, you can encourage online payments and contactless works through glass if you use the design option through the window or you just want to do that for curbside collections. And you can see that in the photo, which was taken from one of our local bakeries down in town. The government guidelines cover goods in and out, so check those out on the links that you saw at the beginning of the slides. And if you can leave items for 72 hours, it reduces the likelihood of the virus being present before you have to handle it again. That may not, of course, be entirely practical, but you can wipe the outside of parcels and things when things are delivered. You might also want to have a dedicated quarantine area set aside for safely storing artwork during those 72 hours if you have the space. And customers, of course, are going to be understandably wary when they collect their work. So you need to be reassuring them that you are hand washing and sanitizing, be seen to do that before touching their work, or of course you can wear gloves. In a way, we have to get used to the kind of hygiene practices we normally see in hospitals. And remember that you get rid of the virus on your hands if you wash them correctly. So that is always your best line of defense. Now, there is going to be a fair amount of problem solving to get this right for everybody. And luckily, as framers, we do problem solving all day long. So with smaller workshops, you're going to have to be quite imaginative and flexible to make the space work for you. Screens are probably the easiest way, or face shields, but in the summer months, weather dependent of course, don't discount being able to use outside space, working from doorways or windows. And people are being adaptable to how they're prepared to shop. Maybe use a gazebo as a shelter or a windbreak. But with it likely to extend through the colder months, though, you are going to need to consider how else to manage it when that isn't so practical. For home-based workshops, it's whether you're happy to have people come to your home, and you would need clearly defined areas that they can come into. Again, you would use similar tactics to the smaller workshop solutions, but as effectively people from one house would be visiting another household, you need to check with your local authority that you can continue to operate as you are at the moment, particularly if your workshop is not in a separate building. If you can continue, then you would need to be very strict on your hygiene procedures, as you cannot separate your home life from your workspace so easily. If you do home visits, this may not be allowed for some time, as you again are visiting another household. And there are specific guidelines on working in other people's homes available on the websites listed at the start of the talk. You may have to adapt to collecting work from a porch or other safe space, doing the design remotely, and advising them of the various options that way. And for framers with underlying health issues, you will have to make difficult decisions on what is practical, sensible, and safe for you. Make sure you have as many strategies in place as possible, the masks, shields, gloves, etc., to keep you safe, and reduce your contact with customers to a minimum, and be prepared to have to lock down again at short notice if needed. Back in 1988, when I was in my first office job, the post office went on strike, and it was the first national postal strike for 17 years, and it lasted from the 31st of August to the 13th of September, by which time over 150 million pieces of mail were undelivered. The effect of that strike was that sales of fax machines increased rapidly. It encouraged the use of technology at a pace faster than would otherwise have happened, and that was only after 2 weeks of disruption. We are in the 10th week of lockdown in the UK, and it's clear that this has changed retail in many ways, because necessity is the mother of invention. So the questions we are asking ourselves are, will they shop? Can they shop? How will they shop? Will they feel safe? And will habits have changed? Now, some people will always want to shop, but if they can is another matter. Health may stop them, finances may have changed, and priorities are also likely to have changed. So then we have to consider, how will they shop? Do they still want the bricks and mortar experience? And a prime consideration for that will be, will they feel safe to shop? Will they avoid the places that don't seem to be taking their health and safety seriously? And will some people actually deliberately avoid places that they see as too draconian? It's a fine line for us all to tread. And finally, will habits have changed? Like the rise of the fax machine in 1988, people have just spent 10 weeks with changed habits. Huge waits for online orders at the start have reduced now, and people are getting used to buying more and more online. And that is a habit that will be hard to change. And these quotes from Steve Rowe, CEO of M&S, and entrepreneur and former dragon Theo Paphitis sum up how they are viewing things for retail. Whether we are ready for it or not, if we aren't already embracing social media, websites, online shopping, and virtual design appointments, we may now find ourselves out of step with what our customers now want and need. But it isn't all doom and gloom, because I'm sure many of you will already have had inquiries from customers looking forward to you reopening, and a good many framers have kept going behind closed doors with a click and collect type system. In times of confusion, people want to cling to the familiar when they can. So we need to make it as easy and as safe as possible for them to do so. And how we get our message out there is key. Decide how reopening will work for you and your business, because it isn't only customers who've spent time reevaluating their lives. If you've been waiting for an opportunity to change opening times or days, to drop certain services or take on new things, this is the ideal time to try it and see if it works. Then make sure you shout about it every way you can. Don't just rely on social media that can appear on a timeline and then be forgotten. Use your website, answer phone, window and door notices to push that message home. Are you changing to appointments? Then explain how they will work. Set up a frequently asked questions on your website and Facebook pages so that people don't have to wait for a response. A fellow framer in the Southwest has produced a poster with a QR code that directs people straight to his COVID-19 page on his website. And having a dedicated COVID-19 page makes it easy for people to find that right information. Look around at how other retailers are keeping people informed and pick the best ideas for your own approach. It's important to keep all your messaging clear and consistent. Update things and timestamp it so people know that it is the latest information. And if you have other staff members, make sure they know exactly how things will work too. There is nothing worse than a confused or muddled message. And give customers reassurances about the steps you've taken to keep everyone safe. Before we reopen, I will be doing a video for Facebook that will walk people through their visit to our new layout. It might seem a bit over the top to do that because it's not that complicated to set up here, but having this may just help reassure, and that's an important part of that perception process. And be prepared for future changes. Once we can reopen, that might not be a permanent state of affairs. As we've already seen, things can change overnight. If you haven't already had the coronavirus, you or a family member might get ill, so that you might need to self-isolate and shut down. Or the government might do another countrywide or regional shutdowns, and they've been talking more about that in the last few days. So be ready for what comes next and keep your customers informed at all times. So this is a chance for new opportunities. Face-to-face design has worked well for generations. And of course, there are ways to continue safely working like this going forward. But thanks to technology, it isn't the only option. And like the facts after the postal strike, the rise in online design has been accelerated. For virtual face-to-face, there are easy options such as Zoom, WhatsApp, and Skype, which are already mainstream for many people, and their use has increased massively as a result of this lockdown. So many of us use these to keep in contact with family and social groups, so it's an easy shift to also use them for business. And I hope you won't mind me mentioning it, but Justin George, who runs George the Framer in Wales, I noticed yesterday on Framers Forum, had described his design process via Zoom in great detail, and it really is worth a read through to give you some hints and tips on how that might work. And if we can call such a relatively new technology old-fashioned, and this is coming from someone, remember, who was taught to type back in the dark ages of the manual typewriter, then the old-fashioned version now would be emailing images back and forth with design options and prices, or messaging via Facebook. But that, of course, is far less interactive. And you don't need to spend a fortune to get this set up in the short term. A simple webcam on your PC or laptop, or even using a smartphone, can work just as well while you get used to the technology and see if you need to expand it into a more professional setup in the long term. And then there is selling from your website through visualization software and online selling. And there are options out there with these new systems being developed all the time. For most framers, we are likely to see a mix of face-to-face and virtual design, and that will continue long after the pandemic is over. However we do the design process, at some point we need to get that finished product back to the customer. And that gives us 4 options. Standard collection from your workshop, social distancing by curbside collection where the customer waits in the car, delivery to their address with the normal kind of courier deliveries where you maintain that social distance, and leaving things in a safe place. You might have a specific area people could collect from at your workshop that would be practical. Another framer has discussed online using a small shed with stable doors for easy access, or you could offer to deliver to a similar safe space at your customer's home. Again, make your policy, inform your customers about how this will work. For most of us, we're likely to do a mix of all of these in some way. And make sure you give payments options too. Again, these days technology makes this so much easier. People can pay via phone apps direct to your bank account in seconds, as an example. If you take card payments remotely already, then this is easy for you because you will have all this set up. And if you don't, then make sure you have email or text trails to verify delivery addresses and confirm payments are being taken to ensure no one does a chargeback after they've received the goods from you. Make sure to protect yourself in case of any payment disputes if this isn't the way you normally take payments. And if you are doing deliveries, don't forget to check your vehicle insurance covers you for business use. However you choose to manage getting work back to customers, do make sure you are also managing the transmission risk at all times, and you should have all of that included as part of your risk assessment. COVID-19 in the workplace is almost an inevitability. One thing we can all guarantee, more and more of us are likely to get or be affected by this virus over the coming months. And the virus doesn't care how busy you are or how inconvenient it is. And we cannot, with this virus, attempt to work through it as we might do with another illness. You must self-isolate and follow medical and government advice. And the rules are very clear, so we have to be prepared for the eventuality that we might have to temporarily shut our doors again. Equally, we have the right to expect that customers won't come in to see us if they are infected. But we also have to be prepared for the fact that some people could have visited when they were asymptomatic. So as other retailers do, have notices up reminding people not to come in if they have symptoms, keep the notices clear and prominent so that they catch the eye. And having an appointment system where you can track every visitor means that if you do find that you get it or someone who has been in has had it, then it makes that all-important contact tracing much easier. And that brings us neatly on to that cliche phrase, the new normal. This is an opportunity to reset and reevaluate. And we can summarize the challenges ahead with 3 simple messages. Be prepared, be flexible, stay safe. The future is uncertain, and making plans at the moment is difficult. So it is just easier and simpler to be flexible. Be prepared for a second lockdown, regional or national, or because of your own health. Have a strategy in place in case you need to close because you're ill. And keep your customers happy by keeping them informed. You could take a leaf, as we've done on our own website, out of Larson-Juhl's book and post a status update, a visible sign that you are still there and still trading. Being flexible really is the only option right now because rules can change overnight, as we've seen. And you can use this time to try out new things and refocus. It's a chance to quietly stop doing things that you don't enjoy or that haven't been working so well. And being flexible means that you can change and adapt quickly. And however hard that may have seemed 3 months ago, somehow it just seems much more natural these days. And staying safe, which really has been the mantra worldwide from the start. Protecting ourselves and those around us. It's why the whole world has been prepared to go to such extraordinary lengths this year. Because you cannot function in business now unless you keep your workplace as safe and healthy as possible. And that applies to your physical as well as your mental health. It's important that you keep that balance and do what works for you. The risk assessments we do before we reopen should be revisited periodically to ensure we're keeping up to date with the latest information and regulations. And make sure you do check out the government resources in your area to ensure you are getting the correct advice at all times. We've seen just this week here in England an announcement on a bank holiday Monday evening that shifted the reopening date for non-essential businesses from the 1st of June through to the 15th of June. And it would have been easy to have missed something like that, which is why it's important to regularly keep an eye on announcements and updates. So 2020 is proving to be a year that will live long in the history books, and none of us could have predicted the changes and effects it would have on all of us in our home lives as well as for our businesses. I hope that for all of you, your preparations for reopening go well and that the information today has been useful. And I will now hand back to Matt for the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jo. Very informative and yeah, I think very helpful for everybody. I mean, I go back to the bit at the start when we were asking people to just everybody to let us know, how they're getting on, and it was a bit sort of split really half and half over, people who feel very prepared and have been doing a lot already, and then other people who are just, trying to get some advice and working their way through it really. So I think that does really help. So thank you for that. We've got a few questions, so let's go through a couple of them. I can probably help with some of them, and then you can chip in as well with anything that you think may help. Peter just said, what about online consultations? Which I think is a very good point, and one that I think for a number of people, we're all getting used to video conferencing as a bit more like the normal. And like I've said before, whether that's doing quizzes with the family at the weekend, it could definitely work for online consultations as well. I guess my thinking is that you might just need to be a bit flexible around that, depending on when you plan them into your workday, either before or after, and the timing of it. But it certainly, I think, would be a good idea. What your thoughts are?
Yes, well, the idea of these virtual design sessions where you're using some of the means out there, the Zoom chats, the Skype chats, or even WhatsApp and FaceTime and things, I think these are all going to become far more normal than they might have been before all this started. So whether you're using an online design as part of your website with one of the visualization things on that, or whether you're doing it effectively face-to-face through a screen, that's definitely going to be on the rise. Yeah.
Got a question over whether there's a completed risk assessment we could see as a guide.
The government website goes into an awful lot of detail. There are, from the Health and Safety Executive, there are templates that you can download so that you can start going through all of those. And if you go onto the relevant government website for your region, and it will take you through on a link to the Health and Safety Executive where you can download what will be most suitable. There's very little point in showing other people what you do for your own business, because each business is going to be so uniquely different. So there will be some crossovers, but there will be an awful lot of places where there needs to be something specific to you. But the templates are on there for the Health and Safety Executive, and that would be my first port of call for that.
I think they are quite straightforward as well to do, aren't they? In terms of the questions that you're being asked and what you need to assess. It's quite logical, and the things that you would think that you need to do.
And of course, we all have the advantage that we've been going into shops and seeing what other places have done. And there's an awful lot of common sense in there when you start reviewing it yourself.
Cool. Okay. Would you recommend a photo of the artwork prior to the meeting to set out samples ready for the customer?
Potentially, yes. I mean, what we're doing with our customers is just asking us asking them to tell us roughly how much time they think they're going to need, and we're doing appointments at different length depending on what they want. It's sometimes a bit difficult. Customers' photographs of their own artwork are not always the greatest, as a lot of us will have experienced when you get an email coming through and saying, can you give me a price on this? So yes, it could be an advantage. It depends what your working setup is, as whether you want to do that or not, but there's no reason not to trial it and see if it works.
Oh, okay. Stephen just mentioned a bit of advice really, which I think is good as well, that he said that he bought a sum up card reader, which is one that doesn't need a wire, does it? So I think that's quite a nice idea as well. Could take it out to
and something else that a lot of people have is a PayPal account as well, which I forgot to mention. But if you have a PayPal account, people can literally just pay you straight away from their PayPal account. I mean, who doesn't have one of those these days? So if you get one set up for your business, then that's another easy way of taking those payments.
Cool. Yeah, good point. Is it worth having a rotation of staff in 2 shifts? Would be another good suggestion, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends on your individual setup. I mean, we don't have any staff, so it's not an issue for us. But if you have got quite a few staff members, then having it on a rotation isn't necessarily a bad thing. And for some businesses, one of the concerns as things start to reopen, particularly for a lot of retailers, it's been in the news recently, is whether they're going to have enough business coming through the doors in the first few months to pay the staff that they're taking back off furlough. So with the government furlough scheme, what they're doing after the August change, my understanding, unless they shift it again, is that you'll be able to have them sort of part back with you and part still on furlough. So you're paying them for the bit they're back and the government will still help out with the furlough. So it could be that you literally have half your workforce working that bit of the week and the other half working the other bit of the week. But every business will know what suits them.
Okay. And then if your design table is made of carpet, would you cover that in plastic to clean quickly? That's quite an interesting question.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We've looked at that because ours is covered in carpet, but we've decided that just cleaning it down between visits should be okay. You know, especially if you then quarantine the stuff for 72 hours. But it's certainly, if you are particularly concerned about it, and it may be something that we decide in the future that we would do as well, putting some sheets and the plastic sheets you get in between the clarity glass, for example, are very good for that. They're a good quality plastic, and you get plenty of them when you buy the packs of glass. Is to put something like that down on your counter that you can then roll up and take away.
Okay, thank you, and very informative and helpful presentation. So well done. How would you suggest we accept customer pictures to reduce the possible contamination with our staff? So yeah, I guess it's the question, handling question, isn't it?
That very much goes back to the fact that you're going to have that piece of work probably sitting between you at some stage. It's going to be a very different design process. Having gloves on, or making sure that you wash your hands directly after you've handled it, cleaning down your surfaces as best you can, and quarantine it for 72 hours just to be on the safe side.
Okay, thank you very much. I think there's just a few other ones that have come through. Thank you from a few different people. So
good.
Excellent presentation, very useful. Thank you. So there's quite a few different ones. Maxwell, Sue. There's a few who've said well done. Mike as well. Stephen. So yeah, a few thank yous coming through as well. And then the final one really that I can ask, well, Stephen's just asked as well about delivery schedules. So from our perspective, we had the email going out just informing everybody to try and be a little bit more patient than normal. You know, it's not only applicable to one carrier. You know, all carriers are starting to feel it a little bit as we get more back to normality and lockdown starts to ease a bit. There is more pressure and more demand on them, and so you know, it does vary by region, and different places are having you know, different experiences by depot. But if you can just be a bit patient, do, you know, bear with us where you can, and we will all get back to normal, you know, as soon as we can, really, in terms of offering those delivery schedules as quickly as we normally do. So, but we'll keep you updated. We'll keep the website updated as well, so that, you know, obviously it impacts everybody in terms of your business, but we are here to to do the best for you. So, Okay. I think that's it from it, unless I've got anything else to answer. No, I think we've answered all the questions. Thanks again for everybody for attending.
Something just popped up on chat. I don't know if you spotted that.
Yeah, no, there wasn't anything with it. So, no, Joe for Cummings' job. There you go. So, there'd be a poison chalice, wouldn't there?
Yeah, no thanks. Running the guild's enough for me at the moment. Thank you very much.
I think so. So, yeah, spending all that time with Boris. No, thank you. Cool. Okay, listen, thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll catch you all on tomorrow's one with John. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.